Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We should be here. Hold on a second. All right, there we go. What's going on, everybody? Here we are live for November 23rd, 2025, the Boxing Source Podcast here. Thankful to be on here for this show. We got a number of things here that we're going to be talking about in this particular edition of the Boxing Source Podcast, packed with analysis of what went down yesterday, particularly over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You had the Ring 4 card there with 4 major fights on there, and we're going to see about touching on one of those other fights as well, because I'm not sure if we'll have them on. Hopefully we do have them on for Tuesday, but I do want to hear from Coach Ronnie Shields on Tuesday. I mean, he should be back, but remember, he still has another fighter that he has to get prepared for, and a fight coming up for November 29th. So after having that fight over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia with Vito Milnicki Jr., comes back here to the States, and he has to get his guy Justin Paldo ready for a fight November 29th on ProBox TV. So that's going to be a lot of things here that we're going to go through on that. Shout out to everyone that's going to be here live on the chat. I know we got my guy Jay Pylon checking in early here for this particular edition of the Boxing Source Podcast. And of course, y'all know this will be available on audio form later on down the line here. So we got folks have be able to listen to this on demand here, once this thing is complete. But we got a number of things here to talk about. I'm going to get right to it because you had an action-packed fight card there in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Of course, it was headlined by the WBC world title bout in the light heavyweight division. And I did kind of notice something else there for this particular fight that I'm going to touch on here after, going over the result. But you did have David Benavidez going up against Anthony Yarde there in the headlining bout, right? So wanted to touch on that. You had David Benavidez, of course, coming into this fight undefeated there, and had was coming off of that win against David Morrell Jr., right? So we wanted to see what he could do here against Anthony Yarde. Of course, Anthony Yarde has been a world title contender on multiple occasions here, as I was mentioning in the preview on Wednesday, of course, falling short to the likes of Sergey Kovalev and Artur Beterbiev. So now, going up against David Benavidez, wanted to see how he would be able to fare in this particular matchup there. But as a number of people saw there, he ended up falling short against David Benavidez. And for those, if you were watching, you kind of seeing the flaws there from Anthony Yarde. At least I did from a defensive standpoint, because come on, man, there's for one, I didn't like how he had his fighting stance. Okay, and this is from the jump street. You pretty much have a guard, but your guard is kind of low when it comes to your face. So it's almost like you can't have it up here or close to the guard, or having a high guard or stuff like that. Because sometimes as you see there with David Benavidez, sometimes he comes in with a high guard and he's able to shoot his punches from that high guard, right? But with Anthony Yarde, he kind of was fighting backwards almost. Yeah, he was throwing punches, but it was almost like his offense was his defense, because when it came to the guard, he had a very low guard, and that opened up or gave the availability of David Benavidez to kind of not only shoot with the jab, but I felt like the key to David Benavidez there was the lead right hand. And we've seen that early. And the reason why at least I feel like you saw that early, was because you had the left hand though from Anthony Yarde. He didn't have, as they say, hold the phone, right? He pretty much had his left hand down. Okay. So that gave, David Benavidez the ability to just shoot that right hand, lead right, just continue to do that. And you kind of seeing it from the second round, just landing that lead right hand. And that was the thing that kind of built up the momentum there for David Benavidez over the course of the fight. Okay. Now, Anthony Yarde, of course, was game, right? But to me, there wasn't really any major punch that really kind of stopped the momentum of David Benavidez. And a lot of the punches that Anthony Yarde was throwing was pretty much like upstairs, like not much to the body, a lot of hooks, jabs and hooks. Only a few uppercuts here and there, but you didn't even see that until like round what I would say round 4 or 5, right? So I'm like, this kind of one-dimensional offense coming there from Anthony Yarde was like really not necessarily good. And I know that there was like some talk about, in the lead up to the fight, as far as like, not just the fighters but the trainers there. And you had the thing in the press conference where they talked with Anthony Yarde's trainer, and guy had a lot to say, during that press conference, like very thankful to get up to this point and build up, Anthony Yarde, and get him ready for the fight against David Benavidez. But you gotta be able to have some proper adjustments there in this particular fight. And they were kind of like saying that in the commentary over the course of the fight, is that you have those keys to the bout there, for these fighters. And one of them is there, as far as like Anthony Yarde, you got to be able to do something in order to mix things up and throw off the timing and throw off the movement of David Benavidez. And one of the things that was mentioned is to try to get David Benavidez to stop moving forward, have him at least stationary, or have it to the point where he's taking a back step, because you kind of like get a different type of fighter in David Benavidez when he takes a back step, and you didn't see that there from David Benavidez over the course of the fight. You know what I mean? Shout out to Timothy Taylor chicken in. He says Anthony Yarde had no muscle or power on his punches. Yeah, and you would think, well, as they say, having a lot of muscle, really, but you got to be able to put something behind that. You know what I mean? And you didn't necessarily see that there from Anthony Yarde, because a number of the punches that were landing on David Benavidez, they didn't really have much of an effect on him. And David Benavidez was able to answer back with, for me, sharper, crisper power punches and counter punches on there. You know what I mean? So I think that was like a definitive breakdown there from David Benavidez over the course of those rounds. Shout out to my guy there, L Dub in the building. Hopefully you enjoyed these fights that happened in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia too. So I'm gonna continue to talk here about this thing with this fight, right? So you kind of had an instance there with David Benavidez kind of trying to bring more action there out of Anthony Yarde, or more activity coming from Anthony Yarde. But you see with Yarde, it was more about him kind of fighting off of his back foot, fighting him from the ropes and all that type of stuff. And you really didn't get much there from Anthony Yarde on that front, because like I said, you got to be able to have something that gets the respect of David Benavidez, a guy that has like a high activity there on offense. Was able to throw 3 or 4 punches at a time, or 4 or 5 punches at a time. You got to be able to have something that gives him respect. Yeah, in a sense, early in the fight, you did see Anthony Yarde try to be first. But the thing about it is that if you're gonna be first, you gotta like make a statement on that, because if you be first and David Benavidez like kind of takes those punches, he's like, you know what? I mean, that's cool. Either I could have the punch land clean, or be able to block a little bit with my guard, or whatever it is. But you could throw 1 punch. I'm gonna throw 2. I'm gonna throw 3. I'm gonna throw 4. And that was kind of like the thing there on that front. You know what I mean? My guy Jay Paolo on the building says Anthony Yarde was too slow and lacked that drive, the hustle, and no big pop on his punches. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, man. You would think you would have all that stuff as far as like muscle, and they were talking about his shoulders and all that type of stuff, and like being buffed up or whatever. But sometimes when you're kind of like buffed up, or like have those muscles and all that type of stuff, right? That it kind of like restricts the level, like like the way that you could extend out in your punches. And this was kind of like that example, right? Some people might bring up the instance of years ago there where you had the first fight with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, right? Where Andy Ruiz, of course, as I say, had a little chub and everything like that, but he's very active. He is able to, throw combinations and things like that. So it's not much for him to throw 3 or 4 punches at a time, especially if it's within mid range. While with Anthony Joshua at the time, like he is like, muscle bound. So he could throw, had like a lot of, oomph behind those punches, but it's like 1, 2, or, 1, 2, or just one. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that you saw here with Anthony Yarde and David Benavidez. And David Benavidez just was able to, methodically break down Anthony Yarde over the course of this fight. Okay. There was like, one point where, was what, before the end of the 5th round, the 4th or the 5th round, where you had David Benavidez there with Anthony Yarde on the ropes, and like one of his hands was like, by his neck or by his shoulder, and then the other hand was just trying to throw a land because like, keep throwing uppercuts before the end of that round. And you kind of like seen there, David Benavidez was like in cruise control or whatever it is, right? So you had that, right? And then, with that being said, what you got is Benavidez, being able to score a knockdown, in this bout. Um, they took a point away from him because it said it hit him while, Anthony Yarde kind of, took a knee there. So he took a knee when he was like basically, in trouble on that front. So Benavidez, landed a couple punches there and whatnot. So that was the thing on that, but still didn't throw off the momentum there for David Benavidez. Was able to bust up Anthony Yarde's nose, and that was kind of like a theme there for most of the fight card. But he was able to bust up the nose there of Anthony Yarde, and in that 7th round, just the combination, landing a couple shots there, forced the referee to stop the bout there. Hector Afu there was the referee for this bout, and he stopped the fight, giving David Benavidez the win there. And now, just seeing right here, we're just going live and stuff like that. You just seen, or some people may have seen, like the Dallas Cowboys come back from like a 21-point deficit to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, that's the NFL for you, right? But yeah. So getting back to it, David Benavidez just breaking down Anthony Yarde there for the stoppage win for him to retain the WBC light heavyweight championship and the WBA regular light heavyweight championship. You know what I mean? I don't know why he still got that WBA regular belt. Hey man, hey, shout out to the WBA. Hey, you get money. David Benavidez, we got paid for this fight. And, WBC got a percentage of it, and the WBA got a percentage of it or something. So shout out to the WBA for having, David Benavidez hold that WBA regular title while Dimitri Bivol is still recovering from an injury. Jay Pylon here says Reeves had fast hands and combos, and yeah, he got in the guard and over the top with I mean, it was like there within the mid range, so that's what happened on that front. Just seeing here, if we're able to get some guys on to join in the building here. Should have on cue the Boxing Academic in the building here. So shout out to the Boxing Academic. What's good?
What's good, JR? How you doing tonight?
All good, fam. All good. You know what I'm saying? Talking action here with that ring 4 in Riyadh. Was just getting in with the main event. David Benavidez breaking down Anthony Yarde to win by stoppage there in the 7th round and stuff like that. So, what were your thoughts about the fight and how Benavidez was able to perform there on that front?
Yeah, obviously it was a good fight for Benavidez. I mean, it was a easy fight. It was a fight where he was in with an overmatched man, and essentially, he did what he needed to do to end the fight. End it early. And I asked myself, seeing what happened to Anthony Yarde, could they have had a different approach to at least give him a better chance? If he was going to take that bludgeoning anyway, should he have came at David Benavidez with a different approach? I'm not saying that he should have. This is just something I'm posing
Mm-hmm.
because this is what we do. We analyze these type of things, and what would have given him the best chance to at least put a dent in Benavidez's armor, because essentially trying to like move, evade, and then get tired, and then essentially you can't move as much no more. Then Benavidez catch up to you, and he's able to put his hand on your shoulder and then like bing, 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 and do stuff like that. um, yeah, that's no good. So I just wonder if there was another approach that he could have made the fight a bit more competitive. Probably not, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that the thing about it was, and that's like a good question there, and you have to have that type of analysis right there, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't be the boxing academic. You know what I mean? So shout out to you on that front, and I was saying that as far as like for a key to the bout for going up against David Benavidez is you got to be able to stop his momentum, coming forward and having a high guard and be able to shoot, at least shoot with his left jab or whatever it is, or as I was saying, that the lead right hand that was just available for David Benavidez the whole night, because Anthony Yarde's stance, regular stance, just had him, have a very low guard, pretty much like have his guard like this almost, not like a shoulder roll type thing, but almost like a guard like this, where you would have your right hand up, but not your left hand. So it kind of like opens up that the left side of your face for a lead right hand. You know what I mean? So I think that maybe a different type of approach there, or a different adjustment there within like round 3 or 4 could have changed things a little bit for Anthony Yarde, but we didn't necessarily see that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he came to win. Like obviously we know what we saw, but like
Mhm.
I, I looking at the outcome and looking how the outcome happened and looking at every piece of action throughout the entire match to the outcome, I'm not sure if he came to win. Like the strategy would be a good strategy if you could get over the hump and then use the evading strategy to your advantage. But
Mhm.
shit, he got tired and then he started getting bludgeoned more.
Yeah, yeah.
If you gonna do that, why not come out and just
Yeah, use all as much energy as possible. Yeah, I didn't understand it. Given how much would be on the line of there, for Anthony Yarde in this. I mean, he knows that he's had the fight against Sergey Kovalev for a world title. He's had the fight against Artur Beterbiev for the world titles. So why not just give a little bit more effort in this particular instance? Because who know, at the time it's like, okay, you don't know if you're gonna have another shot at a world championship in the light heavyweight division. So why not just try to go for it as much as possible there within those first few rounds? I mean, so I don't know how they kind of like approached it there, particularly with the trainer that I was mentioning. Therefore, Anthony Yarde going into this. Timothy Taylor was saying like it looked like a Chihuahua was being attacked by a raging pit bull. And he also says no approach could change the fact that Anthony Yarde had zero pop in his punches. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, we didn't have that much effort behind the punches that he was throwing, even though he was, trying to be as active as possible with his hands. It was just that, yeah, there was just nothing behind him, and David Benavidez was just able to walk through him. And sometimes he was able to land shots, but then, as I was saying, David Benavidez was just kept come back with a counter or a counter 1-2, like bam, bam, and it really just broke down Anthony Yarde in this particular aspect. And I'm like, man, that was, that kind of, reflected what happened there as far as like the pre-fight odds. They did have David Benavidez as high as like a 22-1 favorite or some around like a 12-1 favorite against Anthony Yarde, and that was exactly what happened in this particular fight. You know what I mean? Uh, he says Timothy Taylor says that version of Anthony Yarde last night would have lost to Terrence Crawford and Canelo. That version of Anthony Yarde last night would have lost to Canelo, Terrence Crawford, freaking man, who else out there?
Caleb Plant.
David Morrell Jr. He would lose to David Morrell Jr. He would lose to Callum Smith. Uh, I mean, goodness, man. I don't know, man.
So
Uh,
one thing I noticed is that with the gentleman's comment is that a pit bull versus a chihuahua, David Benavidez fights with a certain rage that's inside of him. You can feel the rage that he fights
mhm,
with,
mhm.
that he like be letting go out on people. If
Yeah,
you are going to beat David Benavidez, you got to get that rage out of him. You got to give him a reason to not remember that rage. Which at some point, Morrell did that. Morrell made him forget that rage when he hurt him toward the end.
mhm.
Like that's one strategy you gotta use to like beat David Benavidez. You gotta get that rage out of him. Because I mean seemed to uses it well. Another one I ask is going to his body the approach to open up his head, because it seemed like people never land really good headshots on him. And so he's obviously soft to the midsection. Okay, there's the risk of him throwing 5 or 6 punches back at you when you go to the body, but is there not a way you can get on his chest and then use the Andre Ward style to like hit him in the body and just keep going there? Like to me, that there has to be that. I mean, I think that is sort of the approach. Like you
The
put
approach,
your
yeah,
head on his shoulder and then you use that Andre Ward style, similar to what Devin Haney was using. I know we'll get to that, but
yeah,
and then that'll make him lower his hands, and then now you throw the big shots.
yeah.
Obviously, Yard didn't have the tools to do that, but
Mhm.
to me, that may be the approach. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of like that was suggested, during the fight. And with Anthony Yard, he didn't really make much of an effort to throw punches to the body. I ain't only see but like 2 or 3 punches that was going to the body of David Benavidez. Even though like a lot of people saying like, hey man, like David Benavidez is soft to the body, but you really don't see that many people kind of like going to the body on that front. But it could be because sometimes Benavidez might have that reach advantage, so it would kind of like be a little bit of a risk. He would have to get, inside a little bit in order to reach the body or whatever it is. Or they kind of see that with the activity and the versatility on offense of David Benavidez that, hey, yeah, you could try to get to the body, but he's going to be able to get in with the hooks and throw those multiple punches, hooks, uppercuts, and then, coming back. So I would think it would probably be someone like a David Morrell that could do that. But for like a number of these other fighters, I guess some people don't necessarily see that with David Benavidez. And shout out to Jay Palon with the question here. Who does David Benavidez remind you of as far as all-time guys or fighters of the past? Yo, that's a good question though, because you really don't necessarily see someone like a Benavidez that has that combination of activity, a little bit of power behind his punches, a little snap in his punches, and being able to work well with his defense. Because you see him like in a high guard, you see him move his head around a little bit, you see him kind of step in and step out sometimes. So that's a really good question. So I have to kind of like break them down a little bit more and see who I could like properly compare them against here. And someone just made a suggestion here, and I'm gonna post it here as far as like what I had, because this was one thing that I was gonna say, and I was reference to the summary. Um, David Benavidez, scoring the stoppage there over Anthony Yarde there within that 7th round, and announces his next fight. What to make of it? Well, they say that he is going to face Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez in the cruiserweight division. Zurdo Ramirez, the unified champion, there in the cruiserweight division. Pretty much ain't see him since he, fought some time back on that Jake Paul card against Little Chavez, as I say, right? And that makes for an interesting matchup there, because you're gonna have in Zurdo Ramirez, I would say, is probably the top fighter there within the cruiserweight division. He could have an instance where he could unify against a Jayo Pataya, who's the IBF champion currently. But now they're saying, hey, maybe we could have something set up here with the David Benavidez, who as I was mentioning, had a chance to fight maybe a Dimitri Bivol, being the top rated fighter at the time, but Bivol wasn't available. They wanted to have the third fight with him and Beterbiev. Bivol has an injury, so they say, hey, if Bivol isn't necessarily going to be available for some time, then okay, what else is going to be out there? And I guess they say that they're going to go up for this fight against Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Now, for me, that kind of like says two things, I would say, in theory, right? The first one is for them to kind of like work out something here with Golden Boy makes for an interesting matchup. They say that they're aiming for Cinco de Mayo weekend. If they had that thing for Cinco de Mayo weekend, that would be something, But hey, you're gonna have what was it, like Zurdo out for a good little minute, because, as I said, he only had the fight against, or in that fight card I was saying with Jake Paul's last run against Junior Dorticos. That was in June. So that would mean Zurdo would be out for almost a year if they do have it around Cinco de Mayo weekend, right? So that would be number one. And I still think that, hey, if they put that in Vegas or whatever it is, that would be a good matchup there, between two, Mexican-based fighters. Of course, Zurdo is from Sinaloa, Mexico, as they say. And David Benavidez has that Mexican background, though he was born in Arizona, right? So you do have that could make for a good action fight between the two there in the cruiserweight division. But also on the other side, what does that mean for light heavyweight? Well, for one, given what was originally scheduled for this fight in fight card in Ring 4, if y'all remember, yeah, you did have this being the headlining bout, right? But for some time there was another fight in the light heavyweight division that was scheduled, and it had a former unified or former undisputed champion at light heavyweight on there in Artur Beterbiev. He was supposed to fight Dion Nicholson. Now that fight had ended up being scratched. Does that mean that we actually will still have that third fight between Artur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol? Well, that remains to be seen. But I mean, I'm kind of throwing that out there as a theory, because if you're gonna have Dimitri Bivol not necessarily be back here for the rest of the year, you had Beterbiev that was supposed to be fighting Dion Nicholson on this card, ends up being scratched. Hey, don't be surprised if that happens there. Timothy Taylor says David Benavidez reminds me of a light heavyweight version of Aaron Pryor. Ooh. That's a good one. Aaron Pryor. Ooh. Yeah, hey, talk about a dangerous fighter Aaron Pryor was. Boy, oh boy. And you could say the exact same thing there about David Benavidez, man. So, hey, you know what I mean? And he also mentions Benavidez's body stays over 200 pounds for over 10 months. He'll never be able to fight at 175 again. Hey, I mean, he's had the whole thing as far as getting down to, those weights of 168 for the majority of his career, now being at 175. And, given his situation, who knows, maybe it's another instance where, he's there, he's 28 years old, currently. They're now 31 to 0. So it's like, okay, is he, still going to have those things where he could continue his career at 175 pounds? Like he's made the 175-pound weight limit for his 3 fights against Gvozdyk, Morrell, and now against Anthony Yarde. But hey, if it's something where he's like, okay, if I know what's ahead of me here within the cruiserweight division, then hey, I don't really have to make much of an effort to get to 175, this much anymore. So hey, if he's able to do that, and they have this thing here with Zerto Ramirez for May of next year, hey, more power to him. And thing is, all they got to do is get have this time off here for like a month or two, then get back in the gym and get prepared for the bout there against Zerto Ramirez, and that's going to be something there on that front. All right, wanted to get to the next bout there that was the co-feature bout of the evening, WBO welterweight championship there with Brian Norman Jr. going up against, as I say, Devin Miles Haney, right? And you had Brian Norman, coming off, momentum there of his knockout wins that he had while, defending the WBO title, first against Derek Cuevas in March, and then against Jin Sasaki there over in Japan in June. And then you had Devin Haney, who was, coming off of the thing there for that Cinco de Mayo weekend this year over in New York City in Times Square against Jose Carlos Ramirez. But, this was kind of like his first, full-fledged fight at 147 pounds going up against the WBO welterweight champion in Brian Norman Jr. And as they were saying, like this was the one that was, like a 50-50 bout. Number of people like didn't know who they were picking, or was like either Norman or Haney or whatever it was. It wasn't like, overwhelmingly in favor of one particular fighter. You know what I mean? Let's see here. So thing about it is that, I have to see what's going on that front. Mike, you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, bet, yeah, because I don't know. Someone was saying something on this thing here for the audio side, but it should be good on that front. But yeah, Devin Haney was going off of this win against Jose Carlos Ramirez, and the thing about it was like, was he still we still had some doubts on what was going on from his fight against Ryan Garcia, right? So thing about it was that we got to see like how the thing was as far as how he could perform in this sense. You know what I mean? So with that being said, the first round, it was more of like a feeling out round as they were talking about. But then the second round was there, and you seen Devin Haney kind of like show the differences in his level of technique and what he was able to do as far as like approaching the bout, right? Because you've seen him kind of, when he was able to score that knockdown, he dug down a little bit. They came around with the left hook, threw off, Brian Norman Jr. on that, and then just hit him with the straight to put Brian Norman to the canvas. But that was kind of like prefaced by another hook that happened earlier in the round that did kind of throw off Brian Norman Jr. So I think when Haney kind of seen that, it was like, oh, I pretty much like got the speed and the timing over him, because Brian Norman is like right there. Okay, bet. All right, watch this. Boom. Hit him with the hook, kind of throw up the timing and the equilibrium a little bit there, Brian Norman Jr. And then he was able to land that left hook first, and then another straight to put Brian Norman Jr. down to the canvas. And with that being said, that kind of set the tone for the rest of the fight, and it made the whole thing there as far as like being comfortable on that front. You know what I mean? Not sure what's going on there, but my audio is good.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, audio is good, bro. So I don't know what bro was talking about. All right, so with that thing happening in the second round, you did see Devin Haney kind of step it up a little bit to try to see if he could score another knockdown in the second round, but wasn't necessarily able to do that. But after that, he just went to kind of like being composed, being like Devin Haney that's saying, okay, I know that Brian Norman doesn't necessarily have, pretty much like a better jab than me, right? And he's not able to, go off the line and throw off the timing by being off the line. He might be able to do some foot feints, but he still stays on the line. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I got it to where, okay, if I'm able to keep my distance, if I'm able to keep my lead hand ahead and kind of see where he's at, gauge where he's at, then I really ain't got much to worry about on that front. And then given that I do have that timing and enough speed to like be able to hang with Brian Norman Jr., all right, I could land when I need to land. And if I have like anything where I'm seriously in trouble, then I'm here in close quarters. But also on the flip side, you had Brian Norman Jr. kind of like, as I said, be on that straight line. And when you're in that straight line, you kind of run yourself into your opponent and you're not able to get your shots in and land your shots. So you kind of like seeing that for the majority of the first part of the fight between those two. And yeah, you did have some moments there from Brian Norman Jr. in the second half of the fight, but it wasn't enough to like really throw off the momentum or have the fight shift, back into Brian Norman Jr.'s favor, unless if he was going to be able to score a knockdown. And he didn't do that. And so that's why you had a unanimous decision win there for Devin Haney, there for him to become the new WBO welterweight champion. One score of like what, 114 to 113. Some people say that's crazy work. You had another score of 116 to 111 and a score of 117 to 110. So you had what I would say like 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4, and one judge scorecard had it 6 rounds to 6. So I don't know what having 6 rounds there in favor of Brian Norman Jr. I don't know what that is, but come on, yo, where did you get that from? You feel me? My guy, Thomas Hill in the building. What's good with you, man? Checking in here and that type of stuff. And Timothy Taylor makes this statement here. Devin Haney might be the Andre Ward of this era. Now let me go to one of the things here as far as like the summary on this. I said Devin Haney scores an early knockdown and coasts to a win over Brian Norman Jr. Is he top 5 pound for pound? I'm going to kind of like get into that a little bit more, but I want to get reaction here from the boxing academic and what he thought about the fight there between Haney and Brian Norman Jr. and Haney's performance.
Yeah. So I'll give my overall sort of thoughts on the fight, then I'll walk through my scorecards. And so obviously it was a great unanimous decision win by Devin Haney over Brian Norman. And so there's one thing I want to say up front. There's something about walking into the ring where most people don't believe in you and they count you out before the fight even begins. And that's where Devin Haney was as it relates to this fight. I didn't hear many spaces where people favor him. The betting odds, the Twitter spaces, like most people thought that he was gonna get handled by a better version. When people sort of broke down and like even in our chat, I think it was Terrell who shared their pre-fight sort of promo videos.
Mm-hmm.
Norman looked like a better fighter. He looked like a better version. He looked more slicker in terms of movement. So if you just saw him, you would have automatically thought like, dang, he looks much better than this guy. The thing is, when people count you out, you feel that pressure, but you cannot let it shape the moment for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment you got to stare into that abyss. You got to gather yourself and you got to rely on what you built to overcome all that shit that people say you can't overcome. And that's exactly what Devin Haney did. So again, coming into the fight, he was the underdog. He was the betting underdog, the fan underdog. And most people thought he would get walked down. But Haney boxed smart. He made adjustments. He showed a championship composure. He dropped Norman in the second round with the clean check hook. And from that moment, you could see the shift in the fight. Norman started hesitating. He started second guessing. And then, he was getting touched by counters that he didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that moment, Devin controlled the tempo with his jab, his range, his poise. And obviously, like you mentioned, Norman adjusted his approach and he had pockets of success, especially when he could plant his feet. But Haney kept forcing him to reset. And that was the issue with him. Like, he couldn't throw without being set. And so round by round, the sharper fighter pulled ahead because he needed a certain set of circumstances for him to be successful. And so by the later rounds, Haney was dictating the action while Norman was just reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And so distance control, cleaner shots, smarter decisions all won him the fight. Haney didn't rush, and he didn't give Norman the exchanges that he needed to be like live in the fight. So to me, it was a solid performance, smart adjustments, and a real championship maturity. And so one of the things that his dad mentioned is that we have been under the tutelage of a lot of boxing professors. And so what you could see very clearly, which is what the gentleman just said, well, he posed a question, is he our modern day Andre Ward? I would say no. But what I will say is that what Devin's team is very smart at doing is getting constructive criticism. His dad know he don't know everything, so he take him to Floyd's gym, take him to Virgil Hunter gym, take him to, what's my guy, Hispanic guy, Robert Garcia's gym. He take him to all the gyms and get something from everybody. Now, Anthony Joshua does this too, but Anthony Joshua does it in a more.
Well, he did it like after, like pretty much like in his back half of his career, not like during his career.
Not doing his coming up. And the way Anthony Joshua does it though is that he completely gets rid of the last person. Like he's like, oh, I'm going to try something new. So it's like he almost trying to change his identity as opposed to integrating it to his identity. He tried to change it. It's reactionary, which is a bad sort of, it's a bad vibe because the way to me is the better approach. Okay, Devin Haney knows who he is. You're not going to change who you are, that you've been working on for all these years. But you go to somebody and you say, hey, teach me this part. And so the one thing that you did see and that the dad mentioned at the post-fight was he got to give a shout out to Virgil Hunter because what you saw was the Andre Ward-esque get in close to you with the infighting, and while I'm close to you, use my body and leverage, and then throw a really like short overhand type hook and hit you in the back of the head, hit you in the face, hit you wherever I can hit you. But use that to get on the inside, and then always close that gap by throwing that like overhand type leverage shot, and then he would always leave with them two body shots with his head on his shoulder. He would always give him two body shots as he left out the box or whatever.
Right.
And so those are two staples that Virgil Hunter taught Andre Ward. You could but I didn't even need his dad to say that to know that they had trained with Virgil Hunter and had learned that. And to me, that is the difference between what we saw. His dad said that too. We have gotten training from boxing professors while they've been training in a garage. And, as far as his skill set, like Norman, you can tell he's a very athletic dude. You know what I'm saying? Like with the right training, the dude will be nice. But at this moment, right now, you can tell it was a difference in skill. You can tell who got the training the hard way.
Yep.
and who learned it, from different things, and went through all the adversity that it needed to do to get to this fight, and then it showed in this fight. So I'm gonna make it quick and just go through my scorecard because I know I've been talking for a while. All right, round one. I gave the round one to Norman. So Norman led the action and landed 3 really good shots. Devin threw second and didn't land anything of note. Round two, 8-10 to Devin. Clean check hook that knocked Norman down. Norman looked like a deer in headlights for a few seconds when Devin was landing counter shots. So before Devin landed that counter shot, before Devin landed that left and that hook and then that right, like he was landing counter shots, and then I could see the like deer in headlights looks in Norman's eyes. Like Norman didn't know what the fuck to do. He was like, he was so like lost in himself. And Devin could see that. Like he was looking so much like a deer in the headlights. Round 3, 10-9 Norman. Devin expended too much energy last round. Norman won by activity. However, Devin kept throwing the Engar, Andre Ward type shot and looking for the same hook that dropped Norman before. Norman definitely is self-conscious now. Round 4, 9-10 to Haney. Devin won the round with the jab. Norman is in his own head, courtesy of Devin. Round 5, 9-10 to Haney. Devin better boxing by Devin. Norman appears to be on a lower level, which is due to the years of proactive, firm, well-rounded teaching that Devin has been exposed to. And this is just my live viewing and just understanding what's going on like live. Round 6, 9-10 Haney. Haney has relegated Norman to throwing predictable shots, and Norman looks slower now. I mean, he was slower the whole fight, but at some point he looked noticeably slower. Round 7, I gave to Norman. Norman landed a few shots toward the middle of the round, close round though. Round 8, I gave to Devin. Norman can't throw punches while moving. He needs to be flat-footed to get his shots off. Devin throwing body shots, jabs, everything. Round 9, I lost a little bit of focus, so I didn't see everything. So I gave this a 10-10 round because so Devin was winning the round, but then Norman came back strong. And then there was a time in the middle that I didn't see. So, I really needed to see that to be accurate on who I thought gave the round. So I gave it a 10-10 because, whatever. But I was leaning toward Norman because Norman came back strong in that round. Round 10, I gave to Devin. Devin controlled the round. Norman is trying more. Round 11, Devin did a little bit more. Round 12, Brian does not know how to end fight. So I gave it 8 rounds to Devin, 3 rounds to Norman, and 1 tie, which my final score was 117 to 111, but I had a tie round.
Tie round. Word. Gotcha. Yeah. So that, kind of like mimic one of the scores there on the scorecard here. We're going to get on the thing for the chat here in a little bit, but I wanted to bring in another guest here that's checking in. It's been a long-standing guest here. Should be the resident chef of the Boxing Source podcast. My brother Terrell is in the building. What's going on, Terrell?
Hey, what's going on? Good people, everybody good?
What's good? What's happening?
Good, man. Just happy that we got this card behind us. It was just a good thrilling card for so many reasons. So many storylines throughout the each fight you look into. But definitely enjoyed the round by round coverage that Mike just gave. All right, really for me with the Haney Norman fight. I mean, I'm pretty sure that none of us on this concert has their nose broken. I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So I have.
How was that experience?
Shit, it wasn't. It was bad. Like my damn, the damn channel in your nose. That shit used to be straight, man. And this nigga hit me when I was playing this dude hit me when I was playing basketball, and made my shit turn, man. That shit was all messed up, man. Yeah, I can imagine it was tough to fight with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you got your nose broke, did you keep on playing?
Yeah, I did.
And how difficult was that to transition from breathing through your mouth rather than breathing through your nose?
I don't know, Terrell. It was tough, man. I don't know. I'm not a world-class athlete, so
yeah, So every time we look at a fight, we always look at level of experience, and even just last week we talked about has Brian Norman been on that big stage, right? He's been there to a degree, but nothing on the level of Devin Haney. But for me, once his nose got broken that second round, and that knockdown, that took everything out of him. Like you guys just said, he looked like a deer in headlights for the remainder of the fight, right? So got his nose busted, got knocked down, got to deal with that emotional damage in the middle of the fight on his biggest stage to date in his career, right? And then he was genuinely hurt. So imagine having your nose broke in a prize fight. Ain't no Tank Davis timeouts. You're not getting another nose, right? And then you have to continue to fight. And of course, boxing, you're gonna get hit in the face continually. So in a sense, trying to protect that injury because it's painful. And as Mike just alluded to, it's painful. So, but then just other than that, I think just Haney's experience took over. For me, it was a bit of an ugly fight because it was just so much. At that point, it was just so much clinching, holding, wrestling, things like that. There's even a couple of times where Norman was holding and hitting Haney, and they're directing stopped that in the corner like that a few times. But Devin and Devin has been there time and time again with different opponents, and we'll get to his resume because we really got to start talking about that Devin Haney's resume soon. Even though each fight is not a beautiful fight, and he doesn't win like we want him to win, typically like that. But he's won those fights. He's still undefeated for a reason. So, I mean, outside as far his farce against Garcia, we kind of put that aside and look at his resume and what he's done so far, and kind of give him a clap, big up on him on that. So, but it was after that. Norman was just hurt, but just days for the remainder of the fight, and once again did not have a clear path to win after he got hurt. He just lost in the sauce at that point.
It was like, the confidence that he had going into the fight and all that type of stuff kind of like was taken away, from that second round. Like I said, from the first hook that happened, with the start of the fight that, threw off his timing and equilibrium a little bit. Then, following up with that lead left hook that, stunned him, and then another straight that knocked Brian Norman down that, just threw everything off. Now, I mean, you had a couple of, folks mentioning this here when it came to what was going on during the fight. So I wanted to kind of like chime in on that there as well. Someone was like saying there was like a whole lot of holding on there, and why isn't there a critique on the constant clinching? But someone else said there on the chat that that Norman was clinching just as much as Devin was there. And they also said like it's not Devin's fault that Brian Norman doesn't know how to punch through the clinch or fight off the clinch or get himself off of it. You know what I'm saying? There's different ways to deal with it. And the thing is too, as I was mentioning there with Boxing Academic, is that there were times where Brian Norman Jr. kind of like was approaching Devin Haney with a come forward, but it's a lineal style, so it's like you kind of get yourself in the clinch because you're getting too close to the opponent. You got to be able to stay within a good little range to be able to land your shots instead of like, try to, like I said, like come in with the hook and then be right there once you throw the punch and you're right there with the opponent. No, you don't necessarily have to do that. It's not like, Devin Haney is like, jab and grab, as they say, with the Klitschko's or something like that, or just, doing it where it's almost like some might say it's like a Bernard Hopkins, but others may say it was kind of similar to an Andre Ward, which we said he almost has a style like that, as far as like fighting comfortably, fighting within his range, being able to see where his opponent is at all times and making it to a point where he sees everything that his opponent is doing. So that's what you saw here with Devin Haney, particularly in the second half of the fight, where even though Brian Norman may have had a little bit or a few more rounds where he was more active, it wasn't to the point where he's landed too many solid shots to get the momentum back in the fight there on that front. And, Jay Palan mentioned, like, there was a round where Devin got wobbled, but Norman wasn't really, putting it all on the line. Yeah, it seemed like, there were times where, okay, you got to know that you're considerably behind in the fight. What are you going to do to make a serious adjustment to try to get the momentum back? And you didn't necessarily see that there, and I didn't really see the urgency from Brian Norman Jr. in those last couple of bouts. You know what I mean? So that was the thing on that. But yeah, that was kind of like what I seen there for most of the fight. And the thing about it is yeah, like Norman got to learn how to move his head off the line. But this also goes into the thing there, like academic was talking about, right? As far as like Devin Haney having that pedigree and being in the gyms with multiple trainers, multiple guys there to chief seconds, whether it's Ben Davison or Shane Mosley Jr. or I think it was like Mickey Bay, or being there in the Mayweather gym, or going out to like I said over by Robert Garcia, something like that. So he's had these different times where he's learned from trainers that have this extensive experience. So while he does have Bill Haney there in his corner, he's learned from a lot of these other either former fighters or longtime trainers that have multitude of experience there. So he kind of like utilized that, and mentioned there with Virgil Hunter as one of those guys that kind of like had him be a major advantage in the comparison to the thing there with Brian Norman Sr. and Norman Sr. not being able to have like proper adjustments there for Brian Norman Jr. there over the course of this bout. Now, what as I mentioned here, as far as like with Devin Haney getting this win, becoming a new WBO welterweight champion, while I felt like it was a voluntary defense of sorts, I ain't seeing this to the point where they're gonna have this rematch or whatever it is. Like I ain't seeing them having a rematch there on his front. So you're gonna see like something where you're gonna have Devin Haney have another big fight that could be lined up for him. Or at least I didn't see the WBO make him a mandatory. They did have him at number one, but they didn't really name him as a mandatory though, or at least I didn't see it, right? But you kind of seen who was there ringside for this bout, and that is a guy that, as I've been mentioning, hasn't had a bout at welterweight since 2023 or something like that, in Conor Ben. And it looks like all signs are pointing towards that as the next fight for both of these guys. And man, I'll say this: it'll be a big money fight. It'll be a big money fight. It won't be in the States. What'd you say there, Terrell?
No, I mean, I'm just listening to you talking about the kind of band. Of course, he's right there, front seat with Eddie Hearn, and of course they're highly interested in the winner's fight. And just pointing out is Haney, and even you last week you said you don't see a way on how kind of make get back down to 140 or 147. I was doing some reading today, and he's pretty much saying that I can definitely get back down to 147. There's more prominent for me going back up to 160 for those two fights, but he's definitely confident he can get back down. But you said it's a money fight, definitely it's a money fight. But Haney himself, he said what has Conor Ben done? Conor Ben has done nothing. He's never had a world title. So what does he bring to the table? I mean, I said it's a money fight, and we say all the time, boxing is a business. But do I want to see that fight? Me, no. I'm gonna tell you why. Reason why we know coming next year we got Garcia and Barrios coming in. It's no guarantee that Ryan will beat Barrios, but I think they will. So me personally, I look forward to a Haney Garcia rematch with two belts on the line. I'd rather see that than see the
without the steroid, without the supplement.
Yeah,
without the supplement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I would rather see that.
But I mean, we got this thing here with Garcia and Barrios coming up, man. And Garcia made the announcement that it was going to be taking place in February, whatever it is, man. But for Ryan, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I gotta believe it when I see it when it comes to Ryan Garcia. Like we've had, multitude of fights that he's had, high profile fights, and outside of the one where he intentionally was overweight, he ended up having a thing there with the supplements against Devin Haney. But you've seen his bouts against Tank Davis and his bout against Rolly Romero, and he didn't, step up to the challenge in those two. So I got to see if he's going to be able to do that here with Mario Barrios. Yeah, he might have advantage with speed and stuff like that, but outside of that, I still have to see it there in the ring with Ryan Garcia. He's had chance after chance after chance in reference to this thing here with like world titles or high profile fights. And a lot of people saying like, "Oh, we got Mario Barrios because they feel like he's an easy lick." All right, Mario Barrios is like, okay, this is how y'all wanna play? It's like, oh. It's like, oh, you motherfuckers. Okay. All right. I got something for all you bitches. All right. That's how he should approach it. You know what I'm saying? He should approach it like that. So I would like to see how Ryan Garcia is going to be able to perform against someone like a Mario Barrios, who's like, with his fights against, your Dennis Ugas, or, against, other fighters there within the welterweight division that, okay, if this is how y'all going to, kind of like approach me, then I'm going to try, step it up a notch or two here for this upcoming fight. So I like to see what happens in that front for that particular matchup when it comes up here in February there. But, with Devin Haney, like he's going to have this time off, then I guess he could wait for the winner of that matchup, because I think he was rated high in the WBC rankings before they made the bout between Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. there for the WBO belt. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on this instance here within the welterweight division. So you got a number of things going on there at the top of welterweight. Devin Haney right now probably is going to be rated at number one at welterweight there with his win over Brian Norman Jr. So we got to see what's up with that. And then on the flip side for Brian Norman Jr., him having this loss, and what is he, like 25? He just turned 25, if I'm not mistaken. And this was, his first opportunity there in a big, in a big fight atmosphere. So now what is he going to do here with Top Rank, and how is he going to get back in the mix within the welterweight division? Because it was that, we had the instance of winning that bout for the interim WBO title, them being able to get the full title there with Terrence Crawford moving up and having those two title defenses. Now it's like, okay, what's next here for Brian Norman Jr.? I say that I still feel like they could have him against either Tiger Johnson or Rohan Polanco there within Top Rank. So one of those two fights could be available to him, and they will both be interesting fights there on that front. So that's what I got there for Brian Norman Jr.
And I would also add in for Norman Jr. This is what November, December. Don't stay out for another 6 months. I mean, well, of course, calculate your opponent, but put like this, I would like to send him back in March on someone's undercard, right?
Yeah.
Just to get back into it. Don't just stay out too long. Keep your name relevant. Keep it out there, and of course have a solid performance. Even also with Haney too. Definitely number one at 147 right now, as his class is now going through a reset from all our past champions like that. Spence, Crawford, people like that. Now the weight class is definitely a reset. Once again, Haney's at number one at the weight class, and I want to add in Haney looked good. He looked good for weight class. We know he's always had the frame for 147.
Yeah.
And so no more of those being draining himself down to 135. Even in system 140 anymore now. So he definitely look experienced, full at the weight class, and we're going to the reset now. And now we'll see how it is going forward. But Norman Jr. should not just wait too long to get back in. Definitely not.
Yeah, that's the thing is, for Brian Norman Jr., he has like This is a real key moment here for Brian Norman because this is one of those instances where you have a fighter that's undefeated, that's had, those knockouts that he's had, in those previous three fights, all of the confidence in the world. And then being able to, have what happened there in the second round against Devin Haney, and not really kind of like do what it took in order for him to change the momentum back in his favor. Now we got to see, okay, what does that do for the psyche of Brian Norman Jr. from this point forward? He's there, like I said, just at 25 years old, and still has like a lot that could be ahead of him, whether it's the welterweight division or whatever. But it's better to get back in the ring sooner than later when it comes to something like that. You get beat by a fighter that ended up being, much better than you in this sense. So now it's like, okay, what do I need to do to reset, rebuild, and get back in the mix once again in the welterweight division? Like I said, it's up to Top Rank to, kind of like see what's going on with that. Carl Moretti was, also there in the front row in attendance there representing Top Rank. So they're gonna, have a plan for him there for 2026. So we'll have to see what happens on that front. Now I had another thing there in reference to Devin Haney as far as like his thing there for pound, but I'm gonna kind of go into that a little bit later because I want to go to some would say the fight of the night there, where at the time it was for the vacant WBO lightweight title, Abdullah Mason against Sam Noakes. And hey, I mean, a lot of people like highly favored Abdullah Mason in this. But shout out to Sam Noakes, though. Shout out to Sam Noakes. He, as they say, gave it a go or whatever it is. But, I think it was something to the point where it was more of the speed of Abdullah Mason that overwhelmed Sam Noakes at times. But Sam Noakes was just, there right in front of him and kind of like took a number of those shots in order for him to land some of his own too. So that's kind of like what's the overall gist of it. For Mason, there were a couple of things there that I saw from him. One, you could see that he's there at 21 years old. And what I mean by that is you still see instances there where he has lapses in defense a little bit, right? And sometimes when he does have his opponent in trouble, you kind of see that he doesn't put the right punches in place, or he kind of looks for something before or instead of just letting it get to him. You know what I mean? So there were times where you did see Sam Noakes in some trouble after getting stunned, but it was to a point where you didn't see Abdullah Mason kind of finish it or get it to the point where he's able to score a knockdown. So Mason, he does get the unanimous decision win. There were two scores of 115 to 113 and one score of 117 to 111. So two scores of 7 rounds to 5, one score of 9 rounds to 3 for him to become the WBO lightweight champion. Okay. And, given the situation that happened there in the lightweight division, WBO and all that type of stuff, now you have Abdullah Mason there as a new world champion, the youngest world champion that's out there right now. And what could this mean for Abdullah Mason? He's another fighter there that's under Top Rank, and it makes for a lot of things that could be out there for 2026. Now, wouldn't necessarily say this would be really soon, but you do have to have an eye on what's going on with the IBF title, as you do have Ray Morataya versus Andy Cruz that's coming up. That'll be at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. So the winner of that fight, will be the IBF champion. Now, if it's Ray Morataya, you got two fighters there within Top Rank that have world titles. But I don't think that they're going to match up those two right away. So for Abdullah Mason, they're going to see about getting something lined up for him with the fight, I would say, in his hometown of Cleveland. Headline about in Cleveland, have a voluntary defense, in there. Like some people said that it could be like Albert Bell, but two fighters there from Ohio going up against each other right out off the rip. Nah, and Albert Bell, like he was with Top Rank, for a good little bit and competed at 130 and didn't get a world title shot there. But I don't think they will have something where he gets it right off the rip. I think it could be someone like a Renee Tejas, right? Or Joshua Pagan, who's there with Dimitri Salita, or Chris Muafo. There, those guys are like around ranked 11 to 13 there within the WBO right now before they update the rankings with Abdullah Mason as a world champ. Uh, so that's what I kind of like see there for Abdullah Mason coming off of his win here against Sam Noakes. I don't think that they're going to have him up against another top contender there that they have in the rankings right now. So I think it's going to be like a voluntary defense before they try to maneuver Abdullah Mason there in the lightweight division. Get something here, I think, from Box Academic reference to this fight, and then we're going to go to the chef after that. So, Academic, what did you think about Mason's performance there?
So I thought it was definitely the most exciting fight of the night. Fans won in this fight. I do think Mason has some maturing to do, because for me, what I couldn't help but always think of when I'm seeing him fight is that the question I asked at Matt's space last night on Brunch Boxing is, how many more fights like this does Mason have before his body starts betraying him, before he not able to absorb the punches and he won't be able to overcome? Like, how many more fights does he really have like this? I'm not saying it's only like one or two fights, but to me, him fighting like he fought yesterday is a ticking time bomb. And the thing that's going to explode is his body. Like with anybody who fights like that. And I pointed out that a similar case would be Figueroa. And there's a difference in what I'm saying. The similarity is that the Figueroas, both of the brothers, fought with that rock'em sock'em style. And then at some point, they weren't able to absorb those punches. And then you hit them with one good shot. Now they're both compromised. They both can't even take shots with just small shots. And the difference though between those is that the Figueroas had to use that style. Like you sort of get the sense that Mason doesn't have to use that style. You can see that he has a lot of other things that he could use, that he's not just relegated. I do appreciate him for entertaining us as fans, but at some point he's got an expiration date on how much he can actually take with this particular style. And so some got to change. Somebody got to teach him to. Maybe he can do it in spots, but that can't be his whole entire fights moving forward, because we know what happened to the gunslingers in the West, even the good gunslingers. At some point, the gun gonna win. Some point, it's gonna be over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only thing when I see him fight, that there's gonna be an expiration sooner than later, and if he wants to have a long career, he gotta mix it up and change it to keep that exciting stuff. But you gotta protect yourself. You gotta hit without getting hit.
Yeah.
You can't rock 'em, sock 'em robots, because it's not gonna end well.
Yeah, and he got a taste of that there in his fight against Johan Vasquez a year ago, over in Norfolk, and ended up getting knocked down twice. So we got to see him kind of sharpen up his defense there a little bit. Maybe something there as far as like slipping or whatever it is to be better off against fighters that are the higher caliber there in the lightweight division. But I don't necessarily see him kind of like going up against those guys anytime soon on that front. Brother Terrell, what do you got on this?
Yeah, so we all know that Abdullah Mason has been big on our radar for quite some time. I think on his rookie year, I think you had him as the prospect of the year at one point, right?
Yeah.
Recall? Yeah. So 21 years old, I think what 21-0, 17 KOs. I mean, this kid has gotten by on his talent, hard work, and dedication. Uh, Highly technically sound, fast fighter, fast twitch muscles, things like that. We saw that, and once again, 21 years old, which is crazy, right? And
Mhm.
already got his first world title. But first of all, Sam Noakes, in the timeless words of Floyd Mayweather, he was a tough competitor.
You know, that's it. Shout out to Sam Noakes. He's a tough competitor, and he's a hell of a fighter. Yeah, man.
But it was to get your first world title is not going to be easy. It definitely was easy for Abdullah yesterday, because just like he wanted the title, so did Sam Noakes. So he came to fight. Even though Abdullah Mason had all the physical skills, speed, reach, height, all that stuff advanced over him. But when you're a boxer, you're in it to win it, and you got your eyes right there. When your first world title shot is right there in front of you, you're gonna fight for it. So Abdullah Mason had to fight for it. It wasn't always pretty, right? But nevertheless, he seized the opportunity, remained tough throughout the fight. And of note, his first 12 rounder, don't forget about that, which is crazy. I think his longest fight before that was 6 rounds, was even more crazier.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he definitely shown through. I give the kid an A+ on that one, because one, it's your first world title. You never won 12 rounds before, and you're fighting on a big stage. On top of that, and that does matter, as we saw with Brian Norman Jr. So Abdullah needed that exposure, which he got from that fight in front of eyes, even hell out of the country. On top of that, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So even and once again, jump back to the Haney fight real quick. Post fight, Haney's father said, "Hey, we got here early. We just our schedule, things like that. So all that stuff matters. So I'm not sure, but back to Abdullah Mason, uh, 21 years old. So two things. Once this kid gets grown man strength, unstoppable. He gonna be the face of he gonna be one of the faces of boxing. Just getting more experience and fighting probably some former champs. And they probably will move him along a bit more carefully, and
Yeah.
just good matchmaking. Good matchmaking.
Yep.
Because he definitely, the only thing he needs is experience, right? Learn how to set traps for people and take advantage of his physical skills, his hard work, things like that. So, I mean, this kid has a world in front of him. And even as you mentioned the possibility of him going back to Cleveland and have a fight, I mean, that would be a good look for him to establish Cleveland as another boxing town in the order of what Keyshawn did for Norfolk. But like that would be great to see. So the kid seems like he has a solid head on his shoulders. He's quiet, he's humble, and hopefully that will stay the same. And don't let those outside forces change him in regards to become some he's not, like that. But great job.
Yeah, I mean, having his father there as a trainer, and then having his other four brothers that's there that's been fighting too. So you have that whole little stable within their own family, and that kind of like makes it to where he stays level headed and things like that to keep him composed and a lot of stuff, because times like this, like having that big stage, as you mentioned, this being his first 12-round bout, this being his first time to fight for a world title, sometimes that could be overwhelming, but they kind of like handled it the way that they did, being there, going to Riyadh when they did, having some time to adjust what's going on, knowing that what the schedule is going to be for the fight, that they were in there and had that confidence and stuff like that. So I said, as we I was mentioning there, what could be next for them, getting something over in Cleveland, if they could set that up there for Top Rank, as I said, Carl Moretti was there. You got, the matchmakers there, Hall of Fame matchmakers there. Brad Goodman there, that's been able to orchestrate, what's going on with this, and Bruce Trampler. So they're going to have a good thing there for Abdullah Mason and seeing what's going on with all of that. So wanted to see how they're going to sort things out there for Abdullah Mason and stuff like that. So props to him for getting that win. Sam Noakes made a good account of himself in this particular fight, and could still be there in the mix in the lightweight division if they kind of like could properly position them to have something there for him later on down the line. Just having that that one loss that doesn't really count him completely out. He's there with Queensberry Promotion, so Frank Warren will have something out there set up for him on that front. So just continuing here, you got the fourth bout that was in between Devin Haney and Brian Norman and Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes, and that was the Bam Rodriguez versus Fernando Puma Martinez fight. And Bam Rodriguez just pieced him up, broke him down, over the course of 10 rounds, man. And Puma Martinez, basically had, one of the belts. And, you kind of like seeing him in that fight. And he, almost looked like he was overexerting himself from round one, throwing hooks. Like, I didn't really see that many jabs from Fernando Martinez in there. And he was like, out there like doing the best berserker impression, like berserker from the WWF or old school or something like just throwing hooks, from round one and just continue to do that. And I'm like, yo, you gonna use up all of your energy trying to land these power shots early in this bout. And like Bam Rodriguez seen that, Robert Garcia seen that, and like man, just be patient, take your time. You ain't really got to do all too much in this. Just do you. And that's all we've seen there from Bam Rodriguez. You've seen the combination punches. You've seen the timely movements, like him stepping off to the side, being off of the line there from Fernando Martinez and being able to land shots, just like we saw in his last bout against Fumalele Cafu over there in Texas, right? Or something like that. So you've seen all of those elements there for Bam Rodriguez. It was just that it was going round by round by round, broke your nose on Puma or whatever it is. And then, you kind of like seeing a couple of shots land from Puma Martinez. And then you had the thing in the 10th round and he landed a shot. And then a couple of seconds after, left hand from Bam Rodriguez, bam, just puts him to the canvas. And, the beatdown that happened over the course of those rounds, once that knockdown was scored, that was just pretty much it. Like, Puma was exhausted at that point. Actually, they could have stopped that fight, while he was in the corner for the 8th round or the 9th round. But that one right there, that just said, you know what, that's it. It's a wrap. He is done. And Bam Rodriguez as another belt there within the super flyweight division, and there's pretty much like one left. It said like Bam dominates, Puma Martinez knocks him out. Is a mere formality that he becomes undisputed? Yes, mere formality, but for me, it's like, why even just go up against who is it, Willibaldo Garcia? Like, you already know like how Bam Rodriguez was a considerable favorite in this bout against Puma Martinez. It's going to be the same thing here if he fights Willibaldo Garcia, just like it was when he fought Fumalele Cafu. So why not just go ahead and have a bout in, the bantamweight division? Like, you might as well just go up to bantamweight. Junto Nakatani isn't fighting in bantamweight right now. He's about to be in there at super bantamweight. So you could go back up to bantamweight or something. You know what I mean? Like, just have a fight there. Wait out to see what's going on there within that 118-pound division. And then potentially, have fights there at 118. You could have, we got to see what happens between Tenshin Nasukawa and Takuma Inoue for the WBC belt. But you might also have an outside shot of facing Nonito Donaire or something like that within the bantamweight division. So, hey, like, what's the point of, becoming undisputed, but just to have that as undisputed? You could just go ahead and move up and just have more belts over there in that particular division. So I don't know, but Bam Rodriguez with that performance, it is what it is. There, that was like a mere formality because Puma didn't have much of a chance. I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna have Brother Terrell start first, and then we're gonna go to the boxing academic. So, Brother Terrell, what you got on Bam Rodriguez here on this front?
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to step away, so I missed that his entire fight. But just post fight, but just like I said, just going forward, what would you rather do? Be undisputed, or be another champion in a different division? So that's a good question. So really, from my point, if I was camp, I probably was probably money, I guess. Like I said, even at 118, Nonito Donaire has a name still. He's still in the division, still fighting. I think he's at 40 years old now. I think he is, whatever, right? But he does have like a secondary title right now. So it's a name, and to go after to put a former champion name on your resume, and it's a better name than anybody else that's really up there, right? Like I said, other than that, to be undisputed, you can say, yeah, it's cool, but like, so what? In a sense, it depends on him what he wants. That's all, Depends what he wants.
Word. Now, boxing academic, I gotta do something here real quick. I have to see if I could add someone else in, see if they're able to properly check in here and stuff like that. So they get their audio thing sorted out, then they should be able to join in or something like that. I think they're able to check in. So I wanted to, bring this guy in. He's able to join in here for this edition of the Boston Source podcast. A lot of people know him there within boxing circles. He is the host of Brunch Boxing. That's Brother Matt in the building. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, what's going on, JBZ? I heard the chef in the building. Shout out to my man Terrell. Shout out to the box academic, my man Mike. It's good to be on here.
What's up?
What's happening?
Great night of fights, man. I mean, I'm sure y'all talking about Devin Haney, the future Hall of Famer. He could retire today. He's in the Hall of Fame. I gotta say, I was surprised that he was able to do what he did against Brian Norman, because I thought while we would get the best Devin Haney we've ever seen, I thought it wouldn't matter. But Devin Haney showed levels, And when I spoke to him a few weeks ago, he said, "You're going to be surprised how I beat this guy." And I should have took him at his word because he really beat him and made it look easy. I at no point during that fight did I ever think Devin Haney was in any kind of trouble, any kind of danger. It just looked like another day at the office for him, and I think that was what was most impressive to me, man. He dismantled, disarmed, and disciplined Brian Norman, and he said, "If you violate, I will demonstrate," and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and I was mentioning there that kind of had something when the second round happened, and Devin Haney like landed a hook early in the bout that threw off the timing of Brian Norman when he was coming towards him, right? And this was before he landed the hook that stunned Brian Norman, and then followed up of that to score the knockdown. And so once that happened, all of that confidence to me from Brian Norman Jr. going into this bout was taken away right at that point. So you kind of seen Brian Norman be more cautious for the majority of that fight until probably the back half of the fight. And by that time, it was too late. You already had like Devin Haney, being the Devin Haney that he was. So that, props to Devin Haney on that front. Wanted to get one question here on the chat. Bull Rider asked, "Do you think fighting overseas affected some fighters' performance?"
Yeah, 100%. Especially those who did not get there with enough time to be acclimated. You know, um, I heard that Devin Haney was sparring and working out 4 and 5 in the morning when he was over there. So he really got himself acclimated not only to to the region, but to the time that they
At the
were going to
time.
be fighting.
Yeah.
He left no stone unturned. Whether or not Brian Norman did the same thing, I heard different, but at the end of the day, whether or not it affected them, it doesn't matter. When you step in the ring, it is what it is. You got to perform. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Brian Norman performed badly. I just think that he ran into a guy that was a standard deviation above him. You know, Brian Norman is going to come again. He's going to be back at the top level because he showed that he has the talent and the grit to get there. It's just that this is the Devin Haney era, and we're all just living in it.
Now,
What is that? What is that old expression that's been around box for a long time? Everyone is okay until they get hit in the mouth. How's that go again?
Everybody got a plan till they get hit in the mouth.
And that's what happened. That's exactly what happened to Norman Jr. yesterday.
Listen,
Exactly what happened
bro.
to
I
him.
mean, we all know this, man. We all know this. Everybody got to play it until they get hit in the face. Listen, I mean, I had to go through it myself. Look what happened with Buster Douglas. I mean, my bad, but yeah, that's the whole joint with that particular thing. But what Matt was saying there, when you have like fighters that's able to be used to or acclimated to the environment, or get there at a certain period to give them a good amount of time before they have like fight week, so to speak, or like in Devin Haney's case, being able to train or do things within the timing that is similar to the fight time that he had there against Brian Norman Jr. So he wouldn't necessarily have it to the point where his like energy level was going to be low there around that time that you actually did have the fight. And on the flip side, there for in this case with Brian Norman Jr., I had heard a couple of things as well as far as like that particular camp, but this, wasn't directly towards like, Brian Norman Jr. and Senior, but like other people that, were in the camp that, may have had some issues there as far as like getting to Riyadh or whatever it is. So that might have like thrown off a little bit of things there for Brian Norman Jr., but still from a skill level standpoint, you've seen the experience there from Devin Haney, and that he was more ready for this particular moment, on that front. The thing with Bam Rodriguez against Puma Martinez, yeah, that was like an absolute mismatch. Um, he has 3 of the 4 major titles and the Ring Magazine title there within the super flyweight division. I think it's meant for my lady that he would be undisputed. That's why I say, like, what's the point of like going for undisputed if you can, just go ahead and move up and get titles there at 118 at this point. He's listed as one of those fighters that is within the pound for pound rankings. Let's see here if I could try to share what I had for the Boxing Source pound for pound rankings. It's been a good amount of time since I've had that. So because it's been since what the fight between Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, right? So I have it to the point where I got Crawford at number 1, Usyk number 2, Inoue at 3, Bivol 5, Bivol at 4. Bam at 5, Shakur at 6, Benavidez 7, Beterbiev 8, Nakatani 9, and Canelo at 10. And you see a few other guys that are out there that have had fights here recently. So there's going to be a little bit of a shift in this pound for pound rankings. But the question is, where would you place, like for example, where would you have Devin Haney in this? And like with Bam's performance, what does that do for him? And Benavidez's win over Anthony Yarde, where does that have him set at here within the pound for pound ranking? So thoughts from y'all as far as like where would y'all put the like Devin Haney, Bam Rodriguez, and David Benavidez there within the top 10 of the pound for pound rankings?
I mean, it's okay to knock Canelo out. All due respect, but with Haney coming in when it's world title at his 3rd weight division, he should be in at right there at the edge at number 10. Bam Price stays in place. Benavidez, love him. One of my definitely favorite fighters. Once again, his offense is his defense, and that crazy sequence in the corner. where Yarde was holding his, I think, right hand and gave the dude, 15 consecutive punches. Crazy. Another viral highlight. Top 10? I mean, if you want to, but I mean, I'm okay with him being right outside the top 10. I'm okay with that.
Box Academic, what do you got?
I would take Nakatani out. I mean, definitely you got to put Devin a lot higher. Bam. Yeah, but you know, the lower weights, I mean, I don't know. I would take Bam a little bit lower just cuz yeah, I'm not as high on the lower weights pound for pound speaking. Um Canelo needs to be out of the top 10. And it's definitely not in the top 10. No offense to him. Um 1, 2, 3 are fine. Let's see, Bivol. It's kind of like, what have you done for me lately?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Now I got, I'm gonna have something there with the, new pound for pound top 16 out here. Probably, that'll be released tomorrow. But there's gonna be a couple of factors lined up with that here on that front. Brother Matt, what do you got in reference to pound for pound, and where you would have like a few of the fighters here that won on this card in the pound for pound, top 10 or top 16 or whatever it is? And see if Matt is
So,
still on.
so, so
Yeah.
I'm here. So here's my issue with a lot of guys pound for pound. We're counting that Ryan Garcia lost against Devin Haney because if the Ryan Garcia thing never existed, Devin Haney is without a doubt top 5 or 6 in the pound for pound. He went from undisputed at 135, champion at 140, and now a champion at 147. So for me, Devin Haney has to be in the top 6 to 7 pound for pound. You have to block out the Ryan Garcia result because it's a no contest. Ryan Garcia popped 30. It is what it is. So I think I would put Bam and David ahead of Bivol. I think Crawford without a doubt is number 1. NUA without a doubt is number 2. Usyk without a doubt is number 3. And then you're talking about Bam, Benavidez, Haney, Bivol, Berterbiez, Tank, and then Shakur.
Now, one of the things that I have is somewhat of a factor in a sense, and it kind of like goes to what I did in reference to these rankings here that were as of from September is when did you fight? And given that we're at November, pretty much like at December at this point, there's a lot of fighters that have not fought for a while. There's some that maybe haven't fought within a year. So that kind of will be a factor in the thing for the boxing source pound for pound top 16. And it's kind of like affect things on that front. Says should Sugar Nunez be on that list? As
No,
it was like,
no,
like
no.
yeah, because yeah, we don't necessarily have him on. Is he supposed to have like a thing like shoot? Some people say like Oscar Collazo could be mentioned in this, and he's a unified champion, but he's there at the strawweight division. So like there you go. You know what I mean? But what's it with Nunez? Like he only has that one belt, right? So I mean, what we got Navarrete that's on the list currently for the boxing source, but he's been a multi-division champion. You know what I mean? Shout out to Captain. It says moving Usyk down. He's like tough, but hey, we know his like kind of like his situation and he says that Shakur can be moved back a bit. Yeah, we got to see if they're actually going to make this thing official with Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. We got to wait to see, how that goes on that front. But, that's kind of like, what we have as far as like that thing there with the pound for pound, top 16. Like I said, it's going to be updated here, in the near future here, probably within the next 24 hours. Now, we got Matt on here. I wanted to, get your thoughts on, catching up with what I was talking about earlier. David Benavidez having this stoppage win over Anthony Yarde, and his performance where he pretty much wasn't in trouble for the whole fight.
Whooped his ass. I mean, what more can we say? That was a pound for pound performance. He was turned on defensively. He was turned on offensively. He was big. He was mean. He was nasty. Dropped him, stopped him, got him out of there. I mean, it was David Benavidez. He is worthy of the name, the Mexican Monster.
So I asked a question earlier. Could there have been anything that Yarde did? So we know the outcome, and and to me, it didn't like he came to win. Like watching everything in totality, could he have changed anything to make the fight more competitive and given sort of a better outing than what we sort of got? And I
Yeah,
get it. He's fighting Benavidez.
Yeah, he could have came into the ring with a shotgun. That's about
Really?
it.
Seriously.
Or he could put plaster in his gloves.
Well, yeah, he could have done that. He could have.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah, if you ain't cheating, you ain't
Someone
trying. Bobby
So
the Brain Heenan.
here's the thing, right? A Yarde, and I think you remember me calling Arturo Gatti this. He's what I call a game loser. He's one of those guys who he knows he's gonna lose. He has no chance of winning, but he's gonna show you that he got heart, so he'll take a beating. He's not like Diego Corrales, who thought that it don't matter how much you beat him up, he thought he could still change the fight with one shot.
Yeah.
He's not like Deontay Wilder, who thinks he could change the fight with one shot. He's more like Arturo Gatti, who I'll take this beating and I'm gonna show my heart. I'll be a blood and guts warrior, but you're gonna beat me.
Yeah, I know that I'm overmatched.
Yeah,
But
and he's resigned to that,
mhm.
So Benavidez beat his ass, and it is what it is.
Yep. Now, I mentioned the thing there as far as like potential plans for David Benavidez, him probably going after the unified champion at cruiserweight, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. I think it's an interesting fight. And it could be like something there that could put, the winner to the next step as far as like being that superstar within, boxing or something like that. So what do you think about that if they do make that fight?
Well, it's a done deal. The fight's
done deal,
done.
Simon.
Yeah, the fight's done. Um, I don't like it because I wanted to see him against Bivol Beterbiev, but I think that he realizes he's not going to get one of those fights. So he's not even going to try to waste his time. He's not going to waste years of his career like he did chasing Canelo. He's like, fuck it. If you don't want to do it, I'm going to carve out my own path. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to make history. So, all you can do is respect it.
Word. And I was saying there from a theoretical perspective that, with him going this direction, that maybe they're still trying to make that fight between Bivol and Beterbiev.
Yeah. The IBA is trying to make that fight. So it's probably going to happen. And it's probably going to happen in Russia sometime in March.
And not to mention that Bevo I think he had back surgery or something, right? So he's definitely out of the mix right now. And Beterbiev, be a great fight. I would love to see that fight, right? But he doesn't have any titles, so there's no traction there. So once again, boxing is a business. Go after the big money fight, and I was just going to the cruiserweight and fighting Zurdo. So,
Right.
And him beating Zurdo gets him a lot closer to getting undisputed at that weight division. So to me, this gets him to history a lot faster than, like y'all said, waiting for the other guys who ain't really trying to fight him.
Yeah, And I think it would be easier to, get those fights there at cruiserweight, at the top of the cruiserweight division, so you do have that.
Exactly.
Shout out to the captain there, says, yeah, Anthony Yarde didn't sell out for that win. Nope, he didn't. Not at all. No uppercuts, no sitting on the shots. Yeah, I only seen like one like uppercut, and it was almost like a lead uppercut that Anthony Yarde threw on that front. So I'm like, man, it was just like, yeah, he was gunshot. Yeah, because you had David Benavidez there across from you that's throwing like 3 or 4 punches. You know what I'm saying? At one time, like you can land a shot, but he's like, okay, you want to land that one? I got 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and all that type of stuff. So yeah, David Benavidez just beat the man up. It was bad. You know what I'm saying?
And so to me, I was saying, should he have went for it a bit more? Like that would have been a better outing for him to go for it and like throw punches with just reckless abandon to try to hurt him. He wouldn't have hurt him, but you don't know. You never know. Like to go for it. Because what he did, it's like a death by, it wasn't even 1,000 cuts. It was like death by 1,000 hammers.
Yeah, but that's easy for you to say. You wasn't the one getting punched in the face. That boy
Man, I
hit
tell you
hard.
what, if I know I'm about to get my ass whooped and I know it's inevitable for me to get my ass whooped, I'm going to go out swinging when I get my ass whooped. I ain't finna let you beat me. And I just, you know how you like, you see the person in high school just kind of sit there and take the ass whipping.
Yeah. Yep.
You got to fight back. That's how, bullies leave you alone, Matt.
Or like the what was it, that scene in the wood with the dude that was like like hitting on the chick, and then her big brother was out there, it's like the bully in the school, and then he just like put out a swing on him, and then he ended up getting his ass beat.
Hey, listen,
But they respect that.
but
Yeah.
he tried to fight back. He
Pull
tried to
up
fight
this
back.
next comment.
Oh, the joke with Cappy, he says, yeah, Puma was a good example of what should have happened in that fight. He went out there and sold out for the dub.
Like at least Puma tried, overmatched and everything. And within round 2, it was still a good fight. And we spoke about this on Matt's show, but Sergio Mora and them was like essentially the fight was over, but he was saying the fight was over in round 1. Oh, it's always going to happen. I watched him do this. I watched him do that. Like it was still a good fight. It was a competitive enough fight in round 2 where what's his name was still trying. And then okay, 1 round later, you could tell it was over. But like before that happens, don't just cloud us and tell us like it's no chance. Like let the dude try. He tried, and then it was over.
Can I tell you a
But he was
secret?
right.
Can I tell you a secret? The fight was
Sure.
over when it was signed.
It was. I mean, he was right, but like it was just kind of the commentary was very colored.
Yeah, you can say that for sure. You can say that for sure. But yeah,
I
Gavin
don't know
said,
why. I
hey.
don't like the way that sounds.
I didn't either, but I'm just that's why I started laughing.
Oh, man. He said at least Puma went out there and sold out for the dub, but he got put into an air coma. Yeah, man. By the time Ben Rodriguez hit him with that left hand and sent him to the canvas, man, goodness, that could have been a lot worse than it was, though. Oh man, but shout out to Ben Rodriguez for that win. They could probably gonna have him in a hometown fight or something there against Willibardo Garcia for undisputed. But like we gonna see him out there in the super bantamweight or whatever it is, or bantamweight division soon in 2026. So that was like mostly a thing there with the main card of Ring 4. You did have something there with Vito Melnicki Jr. getting that knockout over Samuel Moma. They stopped that fight, man. They should have stopped that fight, though. They should have had it where Vito could have finished him. He got a good knockdown, but that could have been really bad for Samuel Moma in that one. And it's looking like Vito's kind of improving a little bit there, but we gotta see what they're gonna do with him there in the middleweight division. He's kind of what is he currently ranked at number 6 in the WBO.
What does that matter?
Yeah, in the middleweight division. I mean, so I don't know if it's gonna
No, but
be.
Vito is going to be fighting with TKO. So
Yeah, if he ends up with TKO, then all of this stuff with the sanctioning bodies won't
yeah,
really matter.
he's going to be with TKO. He's already signed with them.
We already signed. Well, it's a wrap as far as that is concerned. Then you'll see him completely off of all those rankings.
Yeah, yeah.
But here's the thing, though. Like, who else are they gonna have with TKO? Who he's gonna be fighting against? You know what I mean?
Brandon the Cannon Adams.
Oh, Brandon Adams. Well, we'll see. It would be an interesting matchup, though. I'll say that. It kind of says here, never doubt Roddy Shields. There, yeah. So they go on that front, man. I talked about the thing there with Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes also earlier before you joined on, Matt. So like Mason getting a win, first 12 rounder, for him. Was able to be, solid at spots, but also had some moments where he slipped up a little bit. Um, I think, Top Rank is gonna, have him be built up a little bit here, while having a WBO title before they kind of have him going up against anyone that's around the top 10 within the lightweight division there. So what were your reactions to that fight, Matt?
I think Abdullah Mason had a very mature performance. He showed a lot of wrinkles in his game that we haven't seen before because he fought different styles within the fight. You saw some times where he was really offensive, going to the body. You saw some times where he was really offensive, going up top. You saw some times where he was really defensive, slipping and moving. And
Mhm.
you saw some times where he had to bite down on his mouthpiece and show some grit and some heart. So I thought it was a very mature performance, and I was very happy with what I saw. And I think that because Sam Noakes was so tough, Abdullah Mason is going to be very hard to beat in the future. He's going to be very, very hard to beat. Now, the one thing I think he can improve on is his opponent recognition because there were times where he had Sam Noakes hurt where I felt if he would have pressed the issue, he could have got him out of there. But I
Yeah.
don't think that he recognized that Sam Noakes was hurt. But that's stuff that they're going to pick up with experience.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see moments where Noakes was in trouble, and either he didn't necessarily realize it, or it was something where he couldn't necessarily you know do what needed to be done in order to properly finish Sam Noakes. So we got to see how he's gonna work on that here in the future or on that front. But with him being with Top Rank, him being as active as he was in these past couple of years, they're gonna have him, in position for these multitude of fights that could be out there. Maybe a voluntary defense over in Cleveland, Ohio. I mentioned a few guys that were ranked around number 11 to 13 in the WBO currently that he could have a voluntary defense on. So we'll see if they kind of move forward with that. I like to see more of how that goes on that front. But that mainly has the whole summary of the fight card and at Ring Forward now, man. That's mainly what I have. Hey, they said it was like the card of the year, and it pretty much delivered on that front. The other thing though to me was okay, that you have this card and you built this card up and everything like that. And a lot of people were really excited about the card when it was initially announced some time back. And then, they said, oh man, we get all of these fights and it would be this and that. And oh, we're going to be able to watch it on the zone or whatever it is, regular free. And then they have it where it's on pay per view. And then everybody was like, wait a minute, what? I thought you said that it couldn't be on pay per view. So they go through that whole thing, right? And here it is about 24 hours later. And with it being a Ring Magazine event or through Turkey Al Sheikh, what usually happens with that? Oh, they put it on YouTube the next day. So it's almost like, okay, here's the whole little back and forth again with the the networks or whatever it is in Turkey Al Sheikh. So it's almost like, what's the point of having this thing or like watching this thing on pay per view or whatever it is, when one, you have the whole thing with the shooting stuff still going on, and two, you're gonna have these fights available in its entirety on the YouTube channel. So kind of like makes for almost like it's kind of pointless in a sense on that
So
front.
he sort of didn't lie. So he can still say he didn't lie.
Yeah, yesterday I was lying. Today I'm telling the truth. That's pretty much like how that goes there on that front, man. But yeah, that's how that whole thing worked out, man. He says, Kevin says the ring is a mess as far as like handling a few things here and there. Hey, there's a number of things that people could talk about in reference to how they cover things and how things are approached with fights and other news with it, but that's like a whole other story on that front, man.
Can you
Uh,
pull up Pep comment the way he said defense?
hold
I
on.
was I was letting Matt cook, but I would be do myself
Oh,
a
it said
disservice.
what the defensive aptitude was not up to par for my taste. There, I guess when it
And
comes
then
to
one more comment after that.
uh, let me see. He said that yeah, he thought that he was getting hit with things that shouldn't be an issue. Yeah,
And so while I do agree that there are a lot of things positive that he should look forward to, one thing that I'm saying that could be an issue for him is his defense. And how long will he have to where he gonna be able to take them type of shots? That's just something they got to clean up, because otherwise the gunslinger is gonna get shot if he keep trying to sling the gun. Pause.
hmm
But yeah, I just think that's hopefully something that they will shore up, because it's an expiration on trying to with the fisticuffs type of thing.
right. Yeah, yeah. And that's why I kind of like say that they will have the thing there with Abdullah Mason defending that WBO title and voluntary defenses, where he's going to be able to properly work on that type of stuff there and shore that up. While he's building on his career, like was it only 20 or so fights that he's so that's
So
that's
that's
up front. Let me see here. Wanted to touch on one thing here before I rolled up. What is it, Terrell? I think I might have a echo or something like that on his front, man. I'm not sure what's going on, but all right, I think it's kind of fixed now. All right, so wanted to touch on this thing here like real quick. What to make of the Pro Box card? It was on Friday night. What stood out from the winners? I mean, you did have the thing there from Francisco Varone like beating up Royman Villa, where I mean, it was almost like a middleweight versus a welterweight. Of course, Roman Villa had competed there in the welterweight division, and Francisco Varone was part of that OTX tournament at 154. So that was like an absolute like whitewash there from Francisco Varone. And those people at ProBox were giving him a lot of praise. How about, oh, we could, potentially fight for a world title. We should fight for a world title next. I'm like, hold on, slow your roll. Slow your roll. We don't necessarily need to have Francisco Varone fighting for, a world title here just yet. I mean, remember, he did like fall short there in the tournament there for OTX, and I would rather like see him against maybe hey, why not have another fight with Brandon Adams that's out there, for him at 154, or potentially fighting like a Zorge Broachuk or the winner of that OTX tournament in Andreas Katsourakis. I mean, that fight could be a good one, for Francisco Varone. So, I mean, I don't see like why they would push for him to fight for a world title at this point when, we still could have a couple more fights before being put into that particular position. You also, did have Francois Scarborough Jr. get a first round knockout win over Onyx Sanchez. You had this bout between Simbatar Denabit versus Abraham Montoya, where Denabit got a decision win. Man, you talk about a fight that was a struggle to get through. That was one of those. Okay, so there you have that on that front. But that's mainly the thing there. I'm gonna probably catch up with Scarborough probably sometime later this week or next week if he's back in the gym. But that's what we had on that front, and also you did have the Jeter Promotions card in the DC area. Derek Scooter Davis did get a stoppage win there. Of course, he's there signed with Top Rank. So shout out to Derek Scooter Davis for getting a win on that front. But that's what I got here, man. It's been like a packed show, 2 hours. It's rare that I have like shows with 2 hours, but of course we got the team here. You know what I'm saying? Brother Terrell in the building, Box Academic in the building, Matt in the building here, chiming in and stuff like that. So wanted to get like, parting shots on this thing here. I'm gonna start with Brother Terrell. What were your like overall thoughts on like that ring card there in Saudi Arabia, and what else went down?
Yeah, I'm totally thrilled to be a boxing consumer from that card yesterday. I was looking forward to it, and just it was a great card. I'd leave it at that. But I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure if you saw it yet, but boxing scene and also Ring reported that Vanes Massarusin passed away at the age of 39. I think they mentioned he had cancer. We
Cancer,
know,
yeah.
yeah, he's a competitor at 154,
Yep.
and a former U.S. Olympian, I believe it was.
Mhm.
Debbie was a good contender during his days at the weight class.
Yeah, I mean, and that was something to get that news there that he fell due to he said a 2-year battle with skin cancer there. So I mean, it's something there like 2004 Olympian there, Baines Martirosyan. So I'm like, damn, man, it's like a lot. Number of these fighters like leaving us soon, like too soon and stuff like that, man. So condolences to his family there, and we'll have something there where we're going to talk about Martirosyan and his professional career here at the Boxing Source. So I'm going to have a maybe a brief write up or talk about that here on the channel there on that front. Got Box Academic next up, man. Like, what are your thoughts on like what went down this weekend and all? What else happened?
Yeah, it was definitely a good card. As a boxing fan, I mean, we won last night. It was entertaining. It gave casual people something to grasp on if they hadn't been a part of the sport. It gave, more intimate boxing fans, something to talk about. I mean, you saw the story of everybody being against a man, and then he proving to them that everything he needs is within him, and all the preparation and stuff. So shout out to Devin Haney for proving the haters wrong.
Yeah, the haters wrong, the doubters wrong, and all that type of stuff. And I was one of those doubters there on that front. So he proved me wrong on that instance there. Matt, what you got?
So the first thing I'm gonna say is down in Mexicali way, he wears a red bandana, plays a blues piano in a honky tonk down in Mexico. That monster, that fucking monster, David Benavidez. I don't know if people understand what they're watching, but we're watching a special fighter, a special fighter. And it just made me think that a guy like Canelo Alvarez, you 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 ran all the way away from this guy. You was like, you know what? Let me fight the welterweight instead. And you ended up destroying your legacy, getting beat by a welterweight just because you didn't want to face the music against that Mexican monster. So salute to David Benavidez. Devin Haney, 2024, I lost everything. 2025, I got it back. 2026, I'm coming for everything.
Everything.
That was the perfect synopsis of his journey. And that little piece of shit, Eddie Hearn, and that little shit Connor Ben, for them to try to shit on his moment and rain on his parade after such a stellar performance and coming back from he really came back from the brink. He lost to Ryan and nobody wanted to sign him. Nobody wanted to pay him. And he kept at it, kept his head down, kept working, and now he's back at the mountaintop. And if he retires today, he's in the Hall of Fame. Bam Rodriguez, we're watching another fighter that is special. And if I'm running the career of Bam Rodriguez, I forget about undisputed. What I do is I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I turn on Tubi, and I hope and pray that Tenshin Nasukawa wins that WBC belt. Because I know we talk about anyway, but Tenshin Nasukawa is actually the biggest combat sports star in Japan. Okay? You go there, you try to get that fight, and then you go monster hunting in 2026. I don't care if it's two weight classes. You move your ass up and you go big game hunting and you go after the monster because I think a Bam versus Inoue fight is like a Super Bowl type fight for that smaller weight division. And then we have the 21-year-old from Cleveland, Ohio. 21 years old, world champion in one of the historic weight classes in the sport of boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Abdullah Mason, he's just getting started. He's only going to get better. I saw Shakur Stevenson try to say, yo, I'm the best at 135. Yo, ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. This ain't your night, Shakur Stevenson. This night belongs to Abdullah Mason. And if you feel like you're the best guy at 135, then after you deal with Teofimo Lopez, bring your ass back down and fight that young man. Until then, I don't want to hear from you. I want to see what we got with Abdullah Mason. And I couldn't help but be a little sad yesterday because I was thinking about it. We got Abdullah Mason, young black champion at 135.
Mm-hmm.
We got Shakur Stevenson, who's going for a championship at 140, young black kid. We got Devin Haney, who people don't realize he's still young, only 27 years old, young black champion at 147. We got a future champion at 154 on Boots, another young black champion. All of these great young black champions, and none of them are with PBC. Just a few years ago, all of these guys probably would have been with PBC, but it seems to have been a changing of the guard and
Yeah.
fall of PBC when it comes to the black fighter. So I did get a little sad about that, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy with where we're at with boxing in America, and we see that we have the talent. Now all we got to do is make the fights and put the events where people could access them, where people can go, where people can get excited. December 6th, Lamont Road, Pitbull Cruz, O'Shaquie Forster, Stephen Fulton, Landy Lara, Janabek Alim Kanuli. That is in a place where everybody can go. Ticket sales look like they're moving brisk. People seem excited about the fight.
Good.
That's what we need. We need more of it. Make boxing in America great again.
Make boxing America great again. All right, going from what you was talking about there in the review of Ring 4, I wanted to start off with this thing with, as I say, Devin Miles Haney. Okay, because like you said, a lot of people written him off from 2024. Okay, I was like one of them. I gave him a award that was kind of like to the shortcomings of Devin Haney after the fight with Ryan Garcia. But he was able to come back from that, one, and then two, have his fight there against Jose Carlos Ramirez. But even before that, when that result came down initially from April against Ryan Garcia, and then it had the whole thing that was going on after that, the people that written him off, including in Edward Hearn, like said, okay, his overall, marketability is basically gone. That's why you had the example of with him at the time being the WBC champion at 140 pounds, they had the thing with the purse bid for him and Fernando Martinez, and only like one person won the bid or one promoter won the bid, and that was like top rank for like under about 1 point something million dollars. So his like overall value went from like 3 or 4 million to like less or $1 million. So that kind of like written him off at the time. So he goes from that, has a fight against Ramirez, then has this performance against Brian Norman to become a 3-division world champion. Remember, undisputed champion at 135, WBC champion at 140 pounds, now the WBO champion at 147 pounds. Now he can be basically back to where he was before his bout against Ryan Garcia, which Matt kind of like mentioned as him being talked about in the pound for pound top 10. So now having this win, where does he stand within the pound for pound rankings, or do they put him back to where he was before that whole thing happened with Ryan Garcia? So that's one key thing there on that front when it comes to Devin Haney. For David Benavidez, you mentioned the thing there with Canelo Alvarez. Well, there was like two moments. One, yeah, you had the whole thing there with Terrence Crawford and that he could have fought David Benavidez instead of Terrence Crawford. But there also was a moment there in 2023 where Canelo could have fought Benavidez instead of, at the time, saying that he was going to fight Jermall Charlo. Of course, it ended up being Jermall Charlo because Benavidez is coming off that win against Caleb Plant. So it was like all of everything like lined up for that fight that happened then in 2023 didn't happen. Then you had this whole thing going on here in 2025. So he's like, yo, I ain't even wasting my time. I ain't gonna waste my time at super middleweight. I ain't gonna be wasting my time here at light heavyweight. Bivol don't want to, have the fight. He wants to have the third fight with Artur Beterbiev. Cool. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna write my own story. That's what he's been saying. He's been saying, you know what? Hey, they want to do what they want to do. I'm going to write my own story. I'm going to write my own legacy. And so that's what I'm going to do here potentially against Zurdo Ramirez next year. So you got that on that front. And then for Abdullah Mason being the WBO champion at lightweight, we'll see what's going on with that. And hey, I feel like that's interesting there to mention Ashakur Nafisa, Heath Stevenson, saying that he got something to say about the thing there with Abdullah Mason. But you're there as a WBC champion. And as I mentioned, we haven't had anything yet that officially announces you facing Teofimo Lopez yet. So, hey, until we kind of like see that or whatever it is, then you're just, coming off of your performance there against William Zepeda. Good performance, but, we still got to see what's out there for you there at 135, or if you're going to challenge Teofimo Lopez there at 140. And for Jesse Bam Rodriguez, yeah, Tenshin Nasukawa, we gotta see if he gets that win over Takuma Inoue and becomes a world champion. And I want to see Bam Rodriguez versus Tenshin. That's gonna be a great fight. I think they're gonna have that in Japan. That would be crazy if they have the thing with Inoue and Nakatani, and then have Bam Rodriguez versus Tenshin in Japan for next year. That would be insane. But that's all as far as like what I could do as far as like summarizing all of that. It's been a packed show here for the Boston Source podcast. We're gonna be back at it again next week. We do have Pro Box that has some fights coming up. We do also have a WBO eliminator bout there in the featherweight division. Look forward to over in California on Saturday as well. So we're gonna touch on that here on the Boston Source, over the course of this week. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Hopefully I would say late Monday, I'll see if Coach Ronnie Shields will be available for the episode for Tuesday coming up this weekend. We will have a midweek report and all that type of stuff. So y'all, be able to tune in and all of that here with the Boxing Source YouTube channel. So big ups for everyone that's been able to tune in here live. And for those listening to the replay, salute to y'all. But that's what I got here on this edition of the Boxing Source podcast. And until next time, folks, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.
Out.